All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. We're going to go through what happened last week with the Bitcoin miners. We're also going to talk about year to date. We're going to look at a few other charts, and then later, we're going to talk about what's coming up in this week and this month. It is finally April 2024. This is the month of the Bitcoin halving, so there's some big stuff ahead. But in the meantime, let's take a look at what happened last week. While we're at it, if everybody could do us a big favor and smash the like button, we're going for 800 likes on this video. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Also, I want to thank everybody. We recently reached 20,000 subscribers, so that was a big goal. So thanks again to everybody. Let's talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Okay, so if we take a look at the week over week chart last week, and remember in the US, it was a short trading week. There was just 4 trading days, but this was a very green week for Bitcoin last week and the Bitcoin miners. So you're going to see in the middle of this chart, you've got Bitcoin up 9% on the week last week. But you'll also notice that there is a lot of green with the Bitcoin miners. 17 of the 19 Bitcoin miners we follow were in the green, and several of them outperformed Bitcoin. So this was a good week for the Bitcoin miners. It was not a great week for a lot of them, but it is a step in the right direction. The last 2 weeks in a row, the Bitcoin miners have had significantly better performance than they did for the first really 3 months of the year this year. We're going to look at some charts later that go through that. The Bitcoin miners were lagging way behind Bitcoin, so this is a 2-week trend in the right direction. We're going to have to see where things go from here. But if we look at this chart, there were a few breakouts. Argo blockchain was up 33%, and I will tell you all of that was on Thursday. Thursday was a very green day for some of these Bitcoin miners. Hut 8 was up 27%. That was a big move to the upside last week. BitDigital up 20%. DMG blockchain, which is a small cap. DMG blockchain, which is a micro cap, was up 13%. Any, which is another micro cap, was up 12%. Cypher 11%. Hive 10%. Those are the ones that outperformed Bitcoin, but you can see most of the rest were between 4 and 9% in the green. So still decent performance. It's worth noting the 3 largest by market cap are right next to Bitcoin. CleanSpark up 9%, Marathon up 8%, and Riot up 7%. Now, CleanSpark's 9% move to the upside included an 8% move to the downside on Friday, and in after hours on Friday, and in early morning trading today, they're down about 10% so far. They had a big announcement of a stock dilution. We will do a separate video going through that. So that's putting some pressure on their stock. But you're going to see year to date, even with that pullback on Friday, and even with whatever pullback they may end up having today, they will probably still be the best performing Bitcoin mining stock so far in the year 2024. Again, we'll get to some of those charts in a minute. There were 2 Bitcoin miners that finished in the red this week. BitDeer down 2% and Bitfarms down 3%. Bitfarms announced an at-the-market offering the previous week, and it looks like they're still lagging off of that news. So those were the only 2 miners in the red this week. Now let's get to the year-to-date chart. This is essentially the end of the first quarter. So with a quarter of the year in the books, you're going to see almost all of the Bitcoin miners were in the red. We talked about this. This has been an extended period of time where the Bitcoin miners have been underperforming versus Bitcoin. As always in gold, you're going to see Bitcoin up 66% year to date as of Thursday, really, March 28th, because that was the last trading day of the week for the equity markets last year. So Bitcoin up 66%. There was only one Bitcoin miner outperforming that year to date, and that was CleanSpark. And remember, that includes the 8% pullback on Friday. So you're going to see even with a 10% potential pullback today, and we'll see what happens, CleanSpark will still be outperforming Bitcoin year to date, and it will still be far and away the best performer of the year. We'll see what's left to come. We'll see how much of a hit they end up taking off of this $800 million of stock dilution. But for now, despite this short-term pullback, CleanSpark has performed very well this year. In second place is Cypher, now up 25%. So Cypher has been on a run, as well as TeraWolf up 10%. So the last 2 weeks in particular, those 2 have had a big turnaround. They are now in the green. So there are 3 stocks in the green year to date. There's 2 others very, very close. Marathon, which is the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, they are only down 4% year to date as of Friday. DMG blockchain down 4%, and then it drops off to Hut down 17%. But you can see there's a lot of these down between 17 and 26%. So there's some of these that are approaching zero, but we still have a group down between 29 and 54%. So a lot of the Bitcoin miners are still very dramatically underperforming versus Bitcoin. This is where I like to take the opportunity to point out, as I have been for the last really 16 or 17 months, I think this Bitcoin cycle is going to be a little bit different than the previous one for the Bitcoin miners. We've been saying there's going to be some winners and some losers, so you're starting to see that shape up. there's a big difference between the top of this list and the bottom of this list. While there's 3 Bitcoin miners in the green year to date, there's still certain Bitcoin miners down somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% just year to date this year at the end of the first quarter. Down at the bottom of this list, you can see Any down 54%, Mawson 52%, Gree 48%, Stronghold 43%, and Argo Blockchain is down 42%, that despite the fact that they were up 35% just on Thursday alone. So there are some underperformers. So obviously that's for you guys to decide, is there some opportunity in one of those stocks, or is the market starting to price in that they are worried about those stocks? This is why we look at so many different charts. So again, none of this is financial advice. I'm not recommending that you guys buy or sell any of these stocks, but that's why I show you as many charts as I can. We try to look for opportunities inside of these charts, companies that may be performing well versus their stock that's underperforming, or vice versa. Okay, so quickly, if you just go a few days further back in time, most of the Bitcoin miners had a high for the year on December 27th. So that was now 13 and a half weeks ago. Since that day, the Bitcoin miners have dramatically underperformed Bitcoin. In that time frame, Bitcoin's up 60%. CleanSpark is up 58%. Of course, we expect them to pull back a little bit today and maybe some more this week. We'll see what happens. But even with that, CleanSpark is the only one in the green. They're significantly ahead of the next closest. So you're going to see Cypher and TeraWulf, we talked about on the last chart. Those two have had a good few weeks, and they are starting to get close to back to being in the green. Cypher's down 2% in this 13 and a half week period of time. TeraWulf down 9%, and then it drops off to 24%, and then you're going to see a big grouping. Most of the Bitcoin miners in this time frame are still down more than 40%, and you're going to see some of them are down over 60%. We have been talking about the fact that we did have a period like this in 2023. We had 14 weeks from August to October where the Bitcoin miners dramatically underperformed Bitcoin in that 14-week period of time. We're now 13 and a half weeks into that same type of run in the year 2024. So are we getting near the end of this? We have seen some improvement over the last 2 weeks. So we'll see if that is a short-term trend or if that continues, and perhaps the Bitcoin miners will start to catch up to Bitcoin. Now, we do have the halving coming in just a few weeks, so we'll see what impact that has on the Bitcoin miners. Okay, if I go all the way back in time to November of 2021, that is when Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high. So if we measure Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners versus its previous all-time high, that's now almost 2.5 years ago. You're going to see Bitcoin as of last Thursday was down 1%, just a little under the 69,000 it hit in 2021. Now, of course, we have broken out of that. We got as high as 73,800. However, you're going to see the Bitcoin miners are nowhere near in that neighborhood. You're going to see CleanSpark at the top of the list, down just 10% from its highs of November of 2021. So that was not its all-time high, but that was its peak during the previous last Bitcoin bull run. So it is worth noting that in Wednesday of last week, CleanSpark did get above its previous high from the peak of the last bull run. It got over $24, and then it did have a pullback on Thursday, and now obviously with the news of the dilution, it's pulling back even further. And then you jump all the way down to 48% down with Cypher. That is the second best performer. Then you have another significant drop off. From there, all the rest of the Bitcoin miners are down between 67% and 99% versus their previous highs from the peak of the last bull market in November of 2021. So I do personally expect some of these Bitcoin miners to take out their previous peak of the last bull market. Of course, that's not financial advice. I don't know the future, and only time is going to tell whether or not that happens. But if that does happen, you're going to see there's some potential room to the upside, some significant moves to the upside that it would take for these to get back into the green. So this is just another chart that I look at to see if there's some potential opportunities for companies that are performing very well, but their stocks are still underperforming. So there is no guarantee that these stocks will get back into the green. There is no guarantee that these stocks will outperform Bitcoin. That is what has happened in the previous cycles, but we don't know that this cycle is going to be the same. This is why it's important for you guys to do your own due diligence, make your own buying decisions, and have your own level of conviction in the stocks that you hold. Because you can see these are highly volatile stocks. These are brutal moves to the downside. So that's where the Bitcoin miners stand after the first quarter of 2024. So we will now be going into the halving. It is worth noting from Bitcoin's perspective, this is the first time in the history of Bitcoin that it has taken out its previous all-time high, prior to the halving. So Bitcoin has been performing very well. Obviously, the Bitcoin ETFs are a big factor in that. So we're going to have to see how that trend continues. We're going to have to see what effect the halving has on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. And we're going to start to learn that over the coming months. Just another quick chart. In the year 2024, we've been following Bitcoin versus the 4 major US indexes, as well as the 2 largest commodities, gold and silver, and the 2 largest cryptocurrencies, which is Bitcoin itself and Ethereum. So you can see through the first quarter of the year, this is all green. Bitcoin's the best performer out of the group, up over 65% in that time frame. Ethereum has performed very well, up 52%. So far, the cryptocurrencies are way out in the lead, but it is worth noting the S&P 500's up over 10%, the Nasdaq's up over 9%, both of which have hit new all-time highs in the year 2024. They are a little bit off of those as of the end of the week last week. Gold up 7.5%, the Dow up 5.6%. The Russell 2000 continues to lag the other indexes, up 4.79%, and silver in last place up 3.97%. But still, so far 2024, everything in the green. This is better than expected, but there is a lot of year left. We're going to have to keep our eye on this. There's still a lot of pessimism out there in the market, I will say overall. The market continues to surprise and exceed expectations so far as of the end of the first quarter of 2024. Let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart and just see where we're at. Okay, so this is the Bitcoin chart on the 1-day time frame, and it's worth noting you'll see a bright yellow line at $69,000. That is Bitcoin's previous all-time high from the previous bull market back in November of 2021. We've now closed every daily candle for over a week above that previous all-time high, and we've been trading in a very tight range. We've basically been between 69,000 and 71,500 for really 7+ full days. So this is some decent sideways consolidation. We're going to have to see if Bitcoin can regroup here and take the next leg up. You'll also see a purple line back on March 13th, so a few weeks ago now, where Bitcoin did get up to $73,835. So that is its new all-time high. So one of the things I'll be looking to see is, can we stay above this 69,000? It seems like we've potentially flipped that into support. So if that can hold, potentially we can make the next move upside. So we're going to have to wait and see. But that is what I will be looking for. So once again, just a reminder, both Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners are extremely volatile. So please be very careful. Do your own due diligence. Invest wisely. So that's all I got for you for now on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, please remember to smash the like button. Also, if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again, and we will see you in the next video.